The anime series Pokémon was a large staple for those who grew up in the late 90s and throughout the 2000s. They in turn introduced their children to this anime. And those children are almost most likely to share this anime with their children. Then and those who are introduced to it, this is seen as a gateway drug into the video games and manga. But as is always the case with many shows or forms of media that are long standing through several decades, there is going to be a dry spell. This can be seen in shows such as SNL and SpongeBob, which have been going for so long that a dry spell is just going to be inevitable. And with Pokemon, there is one generation or region that's usually seen as that dry spell. Many people do see it as the series Black and White, which is, to be quite fair, a very good assessment of it, as it was at the time a very low point for the franchise. It was a step backwards. Ash was getting a lot of character regression to make him more naive and innocent, like he was in the Indigo League. But this ultimately just felt like a pandering way to get back his old audience. But I just think there's good stuff in it, and it is not the worst for me. For me, it is a series that followed it, X and Y. Now, why do I think X and Y is worse than Black and White? For me, I don't really mind that Ash's character regression, as I feel like there were good stories they were trying to tell, and he had some good moments. But X and Y does the exact opposite. Rather than regress his character, they progress it to a point where it's unrecognizable. Ash is made into a Gary Stew. He is made perfect. He rarely makes mistakes, and when he does make mistakes, he's not really called out for it, or he's never really challenged on his viewpoints. And that, to me, makes the series very boring, and I would prefer something that gives me an emotion as something that I feel nothing for. Black and White infuriated me, but I had an emotion. I had no emotion to X and Y. It's an anime that I have seen twice now, all the way through, and I struggle to remember a lot of stuff that happens in it. And to me, that's worse than being bad. But what makes it that way? Well, certain things that make it that, well, aside from Ash, things that wouldn't be so bad for Ash if he were Gary Stew, if he had a good supporting cast, which he has half of a good supporting cast. Clement is, I would say, a much better replacement for Brock than Silent was. Silent was, be honest, a bit of a know-it-all, very foppish. He was more annoying than he was compelling. Clement is much more compelling. He does have a very good arc throughout the series as he does grow as a trainer, and does grow to appreciate his position as a gym leader. So that was definitely something that is good, but that's also a double-edged sword. As then we go to Serena, who is 100 times worse than any of the female protagonists in the anime. And I know Iris gets a lot of hate, but I don't know. What pushes Iris over the edge to me liking her more than Serena is that Iris has identity. Serena does not. She's entirely motivated by Ash. Everything she does is in service to him. Nothing she does is for herself, which maybe that's why people like her, as she's in service to a character they like. But I like my characters to have some, I don't know, a bit of a soul, which I think can be said for the entire show as a whole. X and Y is lacking a soul. Like, it has good animation, but good animation isn't enough to hold up a show that's honestly just trying to recapture the magic of a series did did around like 5 years ago when it was fresh. And this isn't fresh, it's tired. And I would say it's weird it's trying to emulate Sinnoh, but it's lacking something I think a lot of the Pokemon animes do lack: a rival. As Paul was a very great rival. He was constantly challenging Ash, forcing him to be better. And they've tried to follow it up, but they've always failed. Failed in that aspect. And it's weird. In X and Y, they try to even rival, but they also don't. The rival doesn't really challenge Ash. It's just something like, oh, a trainer I can fight. And it makes them kind of useless. And ultimately, X and Y is just so lacking in its story, in its characters. There's not much I can really recommend for it, which it comes to me, I was surprised to find that it is surprisingly popular among the fan base, which I can think of a couple of reasons why some people forgive the stuff that I personally hate, was that Ash is probably, for a lot of younger viewers, a power fantasy. He's definitely what they wish they could be, as if they existed, a Pokemon trainer. And Serena was probably the first full-on love interest for Ash, which I guess was kind of new, but they didn't really know how to write her. So, on a whole, I think X and Y is far worse than Black and White. Like, I guess the best way I can explain it is, imagine if in an anime like, I guess, Trigun or One Piece or Neon Genesis Evangelion, if character like Asuka or Nami or Meryl just completely agreed with the male lead, never challenged them, never really said, this isn't really that smart, never took charge, never had identity, those animes would not be as well regarded as they are today. And honestly, if Serena was maybe a bit more, I would say, dynamic, if she was more like her manga counterpart, I think the anime probably would have been better for it, but sadly, we're kind of just stuck with a bland, boring, just uninteresting mess. And I would much rather watch an interesting mess than a bland one. So yeah, for me, X and Y is the worst Pokemon anime.